Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, it's fine.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So this is the final presentation of this workshop. It's focused on the future steps of the VERMEER project. Indeed, after a long journey, after 5 years, the project is finally running out. The end of the project is April 2022, the end of this month. So we have to start thinking about the future. But it is also important to see what we have obtained so far. You have seen during the previous presentation that we have developed several VERMEER tools for the risk assessment of cosmetics, food contact materials, solvents, and so on, and several tox eraser tools to support, in this case, the substitution decision making. I would like to remind that these tools are freely available and freely downloadable from this website, the VERMEER website. We have now a new section after the last modification. In this software section, you can freely download the tool. So I suggest you to download these new software and start to use these new tools. And finally, I would like to stress the attention also on the achievement related to these tools, in particular for VERMEER Cosmolife. VERMEER Cosmolife was awarded with the first prize as best project during the QSAR 2021 conference, and also the second place in the Pump Farm Industry 2021 prize. So it's a very important result for this tool. Moreover, we have done important interviews, one of the most important with Chemical Watch, the British journal Chemical Watch. We have start to publish the Sphere Cosmolife, the now VERMEER Cosmolife paper is already published on the Altex journal, and we start to submit other papers related to the other tools. So in the next weeks, in the next month, you will find also papers related to the other tools. Moreover, we received very positive feedback from authorities, and it is really important for us, in particular for cosmetics, for VERMEER Cosmolife from the SCCS, the Scientific Committee of Consumer Safety. And we start also a new research project starting from this tool, in particular this one, NCS Tox, is a project with a consortium of French cosmetic companies, Chanel, Dior, and so on. And we develop a software inspired by VERMEER Cosmolife. So they are important, very important result, but they represent at the same time a starting point, because in the future we want to achieve other important new results. So what's next? As also Emilio said during the introduction, it's up to you, basically to industry, to stakeholders, to continue the journey. So to understand if these tools can bring to you an important improvement, for example, in your internal systems of assessment or R&D. If you want to start a new collaboration with us, a new project to create something even more attractive, innovative, in tune with the times, and also in line with for example, the new paradigm of the next generation risk assessment. And secondly, and also in this case, Emilio already talked about the second point, the idea to have the same environment, the same ET system for the risk and for beneficial properties. And I touch again this point during my presentation. But now, one of the most important part of the VERMEER project is the afterlife plan, indeed. So the plans that we have after the end of the project, for the end of the project. An afterlife plan basically is a detailed plan containing real, concrete initiatives to prolong the impact, the significance of the project. And for an afterlife plan is important the dissemination. So the workshop of today is a concrete initiative to disseminate our result, and we will continue to disseminate the results after the end of the project. Obviously, it's very important to refine, as we say, to improve the tools, the software that we have developed. And finally, probably the most important point, the interaction with the European bodies, the authorities, for example, the European Chemical Agency, the European Food Safety Authorities, and the SCCS for cosmetics. It is really important, fundamental, crucial that these authorities will be interested in the availability and the use of these new tools. So in particular, regarding the VERMEER and ToxEraser tools, I can say that these tools are opening up fresh avenues in the research of in silico models, but really important is second line, moving towards the real case application. So we develop tools ad hoc for focus on specific case study tool for cosmetics, for contact materials, and so on, in order to provide innovative, forward-looking solution for these specific sectors. So the effort to apply these in silico tools is these real practical case studies is important and will hopefully provide a solution, lowering and destroying the barriers that today exist between industries, assessor, and in silico models. Unfortunately, today there are these, no confidence, fear, or lack of understanding of these methodologies, but thinking about cosmetics, for example, where the use of in vivo methods are not allowed according to the new regulation, the use of the application of in silico methods represent the future for the risk assessment of cosmetics. So industries and risk assessor will get profit from using these future-oriented, these innovative tools. In particular, the afterlife plan focus on VERMEER CosmoLife. As you can see in the slide, we have in the pipeline a lot of new future scientific and technical improvements. So we worked, for example, a lot on skin sensitization, in particular focusing the attention on the quantitative risk assessment of skin sensitization. We developed new models for NOEL and LOEL related in particular to the organ-specific toxicity, so models for liver, kidney, for example. We are working a lot. We are developing a very sophisticated, articulated system for read-across. Read-across for cosmetics, as suggested also by SCCS, is one of the most important approaches for the assessment of these kind of chemicals. So applying these different systems, lines of evidences, we can adapt this system and create a sort of weight of evidence approach. Moreover, we want to include the new regulatory data, not only from Europe, because now the regulatory framework of the VERMEER CosmoLife tool is focused on Europe, but we want to extend and introduce data from China, Taiwan, Korea, for example. Moreover, in this case, we already adapted the TTC approach according to the new note of guidance provided by SCCS. So we modify the Kramer classification and the threshold for TTC. And we have to work on the refinement of the percentage of absorption calculation, for example, using PBPK models. So we have a lot to do, and we have a lot of future activities and afterlife activities for this tool, but also for food contact materials. We can include, for example, new endpoints, in vivo micronucleus for genotoxicity or endocrine disruptors. This point is also important for cosmetics, for example. We have to implement also within this tool the TTC assessment. We have new models for NOEL and LOEL, and one of the focus for the future is not only on the plastics food contact materials, but also on the non-plastic food contact materials. Then for the environmental tools, the work is in progress, but we start to think about possible application of these tools, for example, within this new project called FUNDISA project on sludge for the evaluation of contaminants in soil. And also in this case, we want to create a new conceptual scheme, a new practical software for the risk assessment identifying also the threshold for acceptability of sludge used in agriculture. So now, for these kind of tools, the work is in progress. For cosmetics and food contact material, we have done a lot of activities, but obviously we want to continue in this direction also for environmental tools. For Tox Eraser, actually, you have seen before, as perfectly explained by Alberto, that these functionality, so the identification of the chemical moiety responsible for adverse effect is already implemented in the tool, but it is just a first approach, first version of the tool. We want to, as Emilio also explained it before, we want to continue to work in this direction in order not only to identify, to detect these moiety fragment, but also to replace this critical fragment, modify the structure, and deactivate the fragment, considering considering the steric and electronic properties, for example, or very important, the physicochemical properties. Thinking about the future, we want to create a sort of unique environment, a unique integrated global approach for in silico models, and then once an integrated view is implemented, then we can say we have to start thinking about the priority endpoint in silico model for priority endpoint. So for the new future in silico tools, we have to think about which is the in silico models of higher relevance, because related to priority endpoint for the hazard, and at the same time, which substances are of higher priorities for exposure. So for new future in silico system for risk assessment, we have to consider these questions. But it is also important, it is also possible to think about new in silico tools for priority, considering which commercial categories are of higher priorities. And for this reason, for this step, we can consider the data that also Paolo mentioned before regarding the economical impact, the commercial categories for economical point of view, for example, fertilizer, dyes, and so on. So this is another possibility to think about new in silico tools in a future view. So I repeat again what Emilio said before, the importance to have this single unique environmental system, this unique single conceptual scheme, identifying what is important for both authorities and industries, for example, physicochemical properties, toxicological properties, and environmental properties, and what is important only for industry. In this case, for industry is important the functional categories, the functional properties. So again, thinking about the future connection, we can imagine possible synergies between the tools or case studies that we have developed during the project. One of the possible synergism is between the VERMEER CosmoLife tool for the risk assessment of cosmetics and Tox Eraser cosmetics for substitution. So to create a unique standalone platform for risk assessment and substitution. This is a very ambitious idea for the future. And at the same time, use the application of, for example, the VERMEER food contact material tool for the assessment of the cosmetic packaging, considering the migration model implemented within the tool. So the interaction in this case between two different case studies. Moreover, we have to consider also the application, the use of these new tools within new project. I already mentioned the fungi project, the project on sludge, funded by Regione Lombardia in Italy. And the application of VERMEER rodenticide, the environmental tool within this project. And moreover, another possibility of possible application of this new tool is the application of these two tools for cosmetics and food contact material within this new project funded by Belgian authorities. Silly Food is a project focused on the evaluation of non-plastic food contact materials. Then, thinking about the present and the future, we have to consider the policy impact. So, as I already mentioned before, we start to get in touch and we want to continue to get in touch with the European bodies, SCCS, EFSA, and VEGA. We start interaction with national, local authorities, for example, in Italy, Ministero della Transizione Ecologica and Regione Lombardia. In UK, the Food Standard Agency for this project, TOC's Artificial Intelligence project. We are involved in this huge, this is the budget for 100 million, this park project for the risk assessment. And there is also the possibility in the future to interact with EFSA for this new project, RASEMIC, for the evaluation of food contact material, additives and contaminants. Then it is also important the impact on industry. So I already mentioned the new project NCS talks for the consortium of French cosmetic companies. For cosmetics, we start a new project with Korea, and we start a very strong, important interaction with several Italian cosmetic companies, and we want to continue this interaction in order to provide something new for cosmetics thanks to the support of these cosmetic companies. Then for food contact material, for plastics in particular, we start interaction with, also in this case, with several Italian companies, and we want to continue in this direction. And another possibility for the afterlife plan for the future is the possible interaction with Shell related to the dispersant oils case study. So I would like to conclude now my presentation, saying that VERMEER, during the project, we try to provide very innovative and future-oriented solution for risk assessment, considering several case studies, several sectors, cosmetic, food contact materials, solvents, oil dispersant, biocides. At the same time, we provided tools for substitution in line with the safer sustainable by design idea. So we have at the end common tools for different players, as I said, industries, risk assessor, authority, regulators. And the most important one is the last point. We want to continue in this journey also thanks to your support, and we want to get together, as shown in the figure, the picture on the right, the higher target. So we want to obtain and to develop new tools, even more attractive and innovative in the future. Okay, so I thank you for your attention. I finish my presentation. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll refer